I think that having the luncheon with the veterans was a really good experience for all of us because some people just weren't experienced and don't know a lot about the wars. So talking to people who have been through it and experienced it is really...
Asked my veteran at the luncheon. He told me adding and subtracting things to a war story makes it better, but he didn't really answer the question. So
I think the Veterans Luncheon provided a great experience for us to meet and talk to people who actually served in the war.
I think having a luncheon with the veterans helped us realize that the Vietnam veterans didn't only fight one war, but they fought two wars, one in Vietnam and one coming back home, as they were never actually accepted.
At the veteran luncheon, we got a soldier's perspective of what war was. I think that the ending of the book left lots of questions.
I really liked the ending of the book. I think that it made the book kind of mysterious in a way. It didn't really end with an explanation to everything, and more so his thoughts and feelings on the war and how he lived his life after.
After finishing the book, I think that Tim wrote this book as a memoir of his falling fellows.
I think Tim O'Brien leaves a lot of questions open and makes the reader think about what might happen next. I think that both books have a theme of looking backwards in the past instead of looking forward towards the end of the war.
In both the book, The Things They Carried, and the Korea book, both of the soldiers had to go through a bunch of harsh conditions to try to survive in the wars. And they also had to develop a gruesome sense of humor to keep their...
I think that the two books that I read were very similar in a lot of ways, more so because of the aspect from the soldier's perspective, but also because of the experience that the soldiers had. I think that between the two books, there was a lot of similarities. Like, in the one book, the guy was going through some pretty hard times when he was not fighting anymore. And in my Korea book, it was talking about how the guy was almost drowning in a pile of human waste, and that's something that they both went through. And seeing as to the recovery process from both and how one got out of the morgue and made his way back, and the other one did not.
I think PTSD is very strange in the way it affects soldiers, in the way that some soldiers do have PTSD after the war and some do not. I think that it's the transition from war back home. Some people come with friends, some people with family, and some don't come back to friends and family, and they're all alone, and they're just with themselves and their thoughts.
Norman Bowker shows slight symptoms of PTSD, being so fixated on getting that medal, but even though his dad thinks it's about the medal, it really isn't. Because if had he gotten the medal, he would have saved his friend, and that's what has. It's the guilt tugging at him, saying that you could have done this, but you didn't. And in my book about World War II, it says that they don't have nightmares or anything trauma about what did happen, but they have nightmares and trauma about what could have happened.
PTSD affected the soldiers by making them remember the things they did when they were out at war, which then led them to having nightmares and other traumatic experiences.
In Tim O'Brien's How to Tell True War Story, on page 80 it says, "A thing may happen and be told a lie, another thing may not happen and be truer than the truth." And then, that's a true war story that never happened. It doesn't make any sense. The whole chapter is contradictory. It says something happens, but then it really didn't happen.
In the book, The Things They Carried, on page 83, it says, "It was over fast. He fainted even before the man touched him." And then on page 84, it says, "Anyone else would have laughed it off, but for Kurt Lemon it was too much. The embarrassment must have turned a screw in his head." Like that night, he crept down to the dental tent. He switched on a flashlight, the young captain, and told him he had a monster toothache. "A killer," he said, "like a nail in his jaw."
Go.
I think this really contributes to soldiers' perspective because it really shows how their pride takes over the way that they think and the things that they do. Kurt had a lot on his plate, and he decided to go take on what was bothering him.